How's it going, everyone? My name is Jimmy Champagne. I hope you're having a great week, and thanks so much for clicking on my spoiler review of Brightburn. When this movie was announced last year, I was obviously pretty excited for it when I saw that James Gunn would be producing. And then I got even more excited when I saw that his brother and his cousin would be writing it, and then David Yarovesky would be directing it. That's a group of people who have worked together for a really long time, so I knew that it would probably turn out pretty good. And then the trailer dropped and I saw this. Oh fuck. Now, I'm not trying to say that Screen Gems only puts out bad movies, because they're kind of like Platinum Games in the sense that they have an A squad and a B squad. The A squad puts out stuff like Don't Breathe, and the B squad puts out stuff like The Possession of Hannah Grace. So immediately I crossed my fingers and hoped. I hoped that this would be an A squad movie, and now that I've seen it, I can confirm that yes, this is a Screen Gems A squad movie. I absolutely loved it. If you haven't heard of this movie before, I wouldn't blame you, because there's been like virtually zero marketing for it, but the easiest and best way to describe Brightburn is that it's if Superman was bad. It's like his origin story if he was a bad guy. And I really want to be clear that that's barely a metaphor, because they changed like the bare minimum, like this close to being something they could get sued over, and it works so well because of that. And that story centers on Brandon Breyer, aka Brightburn, played by Jackson A. Dunn. It's kind of like alliteration throughout the entire movie, because the town he crash lands in Kansas is called Brightburn. So very in line with the Superman origin story, Brandon crash lands on planet Earth in Brightburn, Kansas, and his mom Tori finds him out in the woods, and since she really wants a baby, she decides that she's gonna take him in, not tell anyone that he's an alien who crash landed from space, and raise him as her own son. The way they explain how Brandon goes bad and why he was a good kid for the first 12 years of his life and then suddenly flips like a switch is actually pretty clever. He's sitting in class one day learning about the difference between bees and wasps and hive minds and how that all affects these different types of insects. And then he starts talking about one specific kind of wasp that brute forces other insects into raising their young, and that's kind of exactly what he is. His spaceship is putting like weird alien language in his brain and subliminally telling him to take over the planet, and it doesn't activate until he's 12 years old, but it's hinted at that an alien race put him here on Earth to take over our planet after being raised by us. One potential downside that comes up from following Superman's origin story so closely is the fact that they're kind of retreading ground that pretty much everyone who sees this already knows, but thankfully it doesn't take long for Brandon to turn bad, and he goes from 0 to 11 in terms of finding out he has powers to straight up murdering people. And it's pretty clear early on that this is a movie where they're not going to do anything at all to redeem the title character. He is a bad guy through and through, and if you're going into this expecting anything other than a straight up slasher movie with superpowers, you're going to be sorely disappointed. The kills in this movie are incredibly inventive. He starts out by having a crush on a girl in his class, and then she sort of rejects him when he shows up at her house late at night, obviously, so he retaliates by breaking her hand, and then her mom kind of makes fun of him in the principal's office and says he should be arrested, so he heads out, goes to the diner she works at, blows a fluorescent light tube into her eye, and then you see her pull this tiny piece of glass out of her eye, and then blood squirts out, and it's horrific. And then on top of that, having that happen to her, you see her first person perspective where half of her vision is covered in blood, and then you have to see her die. She kind of has the worst night of her life. But that's the most basic kill in this movie. And guys, I was absolutely cheering in the theater when I saw him pick up his uncle's truck, lift it high above the ground, and just drop it so his uncle's face goes straight into the steering wheel and his bottom jaw flies off, and you see all of it. You see blood pouring down this guy's face. He's still alive, and he kind of just like holds his jaw back up while he dies in his truck. It's awesome. It's so good. It's a slasher movie in the sense that we haven't seen in so long. A really good way I thought of to explain why this movie works so well for me on the way home is that unlike Injustice, which has Superman being the bad guy, this movie has the ability to push it past anything Injustice will ever do. Because Superman, he can kill people, he can do a couple bad things in Injustice, but he really can't do any of the stuff that we see in this movie because he's still Superman at the end of the day. So this movie is completely attached from that brand and that character, so you got the same origin story, but he can basically do whatever he wants, and it works spectacularly. One downside to Brightburn is that the dialogue is a little bit messy. It could have used a couple more passes in the script department, but I'm okay with that because it's not getting in the way of what I actually want to see, which is Brightburn absolutely slaughtering people with Superman's powers. Another disappointment in Brightburn for me was that it didn't get nearly as much money as it needed. Like, they did a really good job at squeezing every last cent out of the budget they had, and I commend them for that. There's just a couple moments where I would have liked a little bit more polish on the CGI, or I would have liked to see a closer up shot of what was going on, but they had a really wide angle because if you have a little bit worse CGI doing stuff way out in the distance, it'll look better than it would if it was close up. Fortunately though, they took all the money they could and put it towards making sure that the gore moments were practical and looked good enough so you could see them close up. I think that was a really smart move on the filmmaker's part. Going back to the title character of Brightburn, Jackson A. Dunn was a little shaky at the beginning when he had to play a normal kid, but once he becomes the bad guy and starts having some fun, he does an excellent job. And that's important because if you've seen the movie, which I hope you have, you know that Elizabeth Banks' character dies at the very end, so she can't come back except for like flashbacks or whatever. So if they do a sequel, he's gonna have to carry it, and seeing him as the bad guy for the vast majority of this movie makes me very confident that he could. And I really hope this movie gets a sequel because it leaves it open in the best possible way. I thought it was really smart that they had Brightburn just kill anyone who could rat him out so that he could come back later and just have some fun in the meantime, becoming the world's best supervillain. And on top of that, during the credits, they tease all of these other monsters that are living on planet Earth that everyone has seen, so they could kind of set up their own bad Avengers and not be tied down by any of the DC or Marvel baggage. Because of what happened to James Gunn last summer, Sony and Screen Gems seem to have decided to take a loss on this movie, and I wish they'd really have some backbone and put some real money behind it because it's one of the best things they've made in years, and I don't understand why they aren't marketing it more. It's just so rare that we get movies like this, but thanks to its super low budget, it'll probably make its money back, and I'm really hoping it does. So let me know what you thought of Brightburn if you saw it down in the comments below, and remember to hit the notification bell when you subscribe so you get an email every time I upload a video. Anyway guys, my name is Jimmy Champagne, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.